do you think people are really taking the time? And I'm gonna say going both ways. Do you think the people, but I'm gonna say specifically men because they are the ones that initiate, marriage. Do you think that they actually take the time to say, man, there's a 50-50 chance of me getting married? And then moving on from there to specifically say, you know what, let me do my own research. And when I say research, I don't just mean going to look up the stats and all of that, but finding other married men who seem to be having a successful marriage, getting in spaces with them, asking them questions. What makes a marriage work? Well, what happens when you guys get in an argument? As a man, as a husband, what is your role? What do you do? They're not taking the next step beyond just saying is a 50-50 chance. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where they get stuck. They look at the odds and say 50-50 chance that I may not get married, but everybody that I'm around, they're not married, they're cohabitating, or they're not putting themselves in spaces to see what success looks like when it comes to a marriage. And I think that's the problem. So you're only seeing people who are divorced or people who never got married at all. And so you make your decision to say, you know what, it probably ain't for me, versus saying, I do want to be married, but I want my marriage to be successful. What are some things can I do to increase my rates of success? So that might be going to therapy, or if you find a mate, to be like, you know what, before we even get married and think about marriage, let's just have relationship counseling so we can at least start off on the right foot and set a foundation. Or are you reading books? Are you, looking up research? Are you putting yourself in spaces where men who are successful married, men are not doing that?
So AP, can I slide in for a second before you get in?
Now go ahead.
All right. So what do you think is the reason for marriage? Like, what do you think is like the definition of it, and what do you think is the reason for it? Like, what is the backing? Like, banks got the FDIC, right? Our military got the different branches. What is the reason, the backing for marriage?
I think that we are just in general as humans, we are meant to, we're not meant to be alone, right? For one, we're not meant to go through life alone. So for a woman, I think for men too, in a different, but we do it in a different way. Women bond with their man when they have a husband. Their main goal is to work together to create a legacy. You know what I'm saying? They also are working too for that companionship to become one. Because if I'm the yin and you are yang, if we never come together, then we'll never reach our greatest purpose. That's my opinion. So I think marriage is the result of your greatest purpose. That I know that might not be a technical definition, but that is the way that I envision it. Is that is you getting your other half in order for you to reach your greatest purpose.
Okay. The reason why I asked that question,
I agree with that part, with that last part mistaken.
the reason why I asked this question is because part of the fear is the lack of knowledge and understanding, right? So if you don't really have an understanding or reasoning or any kind of like backing towards this thing that you say these people should do, they'll only be doing it because you just told them that they should do it, right? Or you'd be like, oh, they'll be like, hey, well, this person did it, so I should be able to do it, right? So I think I agree. There's a lot of paralysis by analysis. I agree. But I think part of the reason is because people don't really have a true foundational like answer to why marriage. They might be like, well, I got a good relationship and look at what I'm doing. And you'll look at it from your standpoint of your successful marriage, right? But to the other people who also experience marriage, they help add a different layer to it, right? So now it's like, well, shoot, like if marriage is so good and so great, why are so many people not experiencing it the right way? And it's due oftentimes to the thought process of what marriage is. And even when you ask even the successful people, the answers are sometimes not as consistent. And then even when you get down to the nitty-gritty, most of the successful relationships say, well, do what you want to do. Do what y'all think is feasible. Do what works for y'all, right? So
Correct.
then that adds even another layer. So now it's up to me to figure out what works for me. And then it's like it adds a whole bunch of different like nuance and variables to the relationship. And you can easily see why it's a 50% chance that it will work or not, because the people that's in it don't really understand the purpose, the need, where it came from, why, or anything. We don't know enough about relationships or marriages to actually make a actual reasonable decision to be like, this is what I should do. And for
Well, my
these
question
reasons.
is, why would you get in a relationship, period, then? Based on that logic, why would
Well,
you
a
get
lot
in?
of people aren't getting in relationships based upon that logic.
No, I'm saying based on your logic, what you just said is that most people don't know the purpose of marriage. They don't know, the foundation. You ask different people, they say, well, think that, what works for you. If that is the case, then to me, it seems like you wouldn't do play marriage either. Why even entertain the idea of a relationship at all if you feel like there's not really a benefit to it? Obviously there's some benefit to relationship. So what's the difference between that and taking a step to going to the level towards marriage?
Um, I would be lying if I didn't understand, or that people don't understand that there is some level of benefit, right? And I do agree that the strongest barrier is the idea of the responsibility that comes with making a marriage decision. Even though in marriage you can leave that relationship the same way you can leave a relationship that's not married. There's ways for you to get out of this relationship. You can have a bad non-married relationship. You can have a bad married relationship. There's good and bad and benefits on both sides, regardless of how you slice it. But I think a piece of what it is that you're asking, why would people make these decisions to do these things regardless? A
Mhm.
lot of the reasons why people are doing these things is because they've seen somebody else do it. That's why when you have a married couple that creates kids, even though these kids might have seen a bad relationship or a bad marriage, they're still inclined to follow the same thing they saw. They were like, well, I'm going to choose marriage because this is what I brought. This is what I was brought up in. This is what I seen. And this is what people tell me that I should do. So they don't actually explain it. It's just monkey see, monkey do. And I think that is a recipe for disaster, because even the successful relationships can't necessarily tell you why marriage. They just said, well, based upon my experience, here's why.